Is this on? Let me make sure. Well, good afternoon, everybody. I think we'll get started. First of all, I want to thank everybody for coming today. Again, my name is Paul Tribino. I'm the director of Iowa DOT. I can't thank enough for people coming out today and really celebrate, which is a real true milestone with the state of Iowa with 100 years of transportation. So as we get started, I just wanted to acknowledge, first off, our current commissioners. I know there's probably a lot of folks here. Commissioner Barry Cleveland, Sharice Yanni, David Rose, Amy Reesner, Lori Miles, and Don Wiley are here. We just got done with commission, and we just put out our 2014-2018 draft program, so it was a good day, I think, for us to get that out and forward and really getting the next 5 years of transportation set in the state of Iowa. So again, what I thought I'd start off a little bit today is talk a little bit about the history of transportation in the state of Iowa and really some of the wonderful things that have obviously been done, and really some of the unique characteristics, I think, is what you're going to hear, and hopefully you see a lot in the displays here today. But again, I can't say enough for the turnout and the folks to come here today and celebrate 100 years of transportation in the state of Iowa. So every day, people in Iowa travel our roads, hop on airplanes, board transit buses, ride the rails, ride trails, watch trains and barges filled with products integral to our daily lives pass us by. We take for granted with ease, I think, how people and goods move place to place. The enormity of the transportation system network and the impact that it has on all of our daily lives has become really commonplace. I think it's become an expectation, and it's easy to forget how far we have come in 100 years. Just over a century ago, and I think you can see it depicted in a lot of the pictures around here, Iowans traveled by foot and horse-drawn carriage. Cars were really new technology at the time, and I don't think citizens really had any idea of what would become their popularity and how it would forever change the transportation system and really the world that we live in today. As the number of cars increased, and I think we're well over 4 million registered vehicles in the state of Iowa, so did the need for really a substantive road system that could support their traffic. Roads in the early years were built from, I think we all know, mud. There's no question about that. We have the classic picture that I think everyone's very familiar with. Dusty during the times when it was dry, deep ruts, sticky mud made it almost impossible to pass during the rainy season. They were constructed with little oversight, often by those with commercial interest in moving goods or people through a specific area. Signage was very confusing at times and not helpful for people trying to get from one place to another. And it was often not uncommon, really, for bridges to really collapse under the weight of loads or due to being really built with unsatisfactory materials. That's really a lot of what the history of transportation in this state and a lot of states 100 years ago. From that, I think it became very clear, not only to the state, but there really need to be a different way to handle transportation and to make it safe, ultimately, for the public. And it started in 1904 with Iowa's General Assembly when they created the Highway Commission as part of Iowa State College, really Iowa State University. They served as an advisory role, providing advice and assistance at the request of a local board or official. As time went on, more active role in the creation of the transportation infrastructure was needed. And then in April 9th, 1913, the Iowa General Assembly took the role to create essentially the Highway Commission and move that out of Iowa State College and created its own separate governing body. This new identity, Iowa State Highway Commission, was responsible for general supervision of local road officials as well as preparing standardized plans and specifications for highway bridge work. And I think one of the things that's very fascinating from my perspective coming to the state is why is the department here? Why are we in Ames? We're actually one of only a couple of 2-3 states where DOT is not in the capital city. And that debate in 1913 really became about where to place the Department of Transportation, or at that time the Highway Commission, whether it be Des Moines or Ames. And the debate revolved on should they keep the Highway Commission away from the politics of Des Moines. That was really what centered on a lot of the debate. And I think we would all say they made a very good decision, right? And a decision that had long-lasting implications, really not only for the Commission, but for the Department of Transportation. And it stands today of why we're here. And I think that partnership also with the City of Ames at that time stepped up and really provided the land for the Commission to really get settled on where we are ultimately today. And from the beginning, the Highway Commission was committed to being a national leader in transportation. And I think you all know that. They worked diligently to secure funding for Iowa's roads and bridges. They implemented safety practices and kept the traffic and public out of danger. That was a very big focus at that time. Their employees engineered equipment that allowed roads and bridges to be built cheaper, faster, and safer. We like to say those words today. They standardized directional signage to avoid confusion and increase safety. The Highway Commission worked to move Iowa out of the mud, as we all like to say, creating an impressive infrastructure of roads which included state and national highways and connected eventually to the nation's interstate system. What's most, I think, important is the Commission was known for creating standards that were not only became adopted nationally, but many of them went on to move internationally. We really were driving innovation for the most part, not only for the nation, but really ultimately for the world. And then, I think most of us know, 1974, a study was conducted about the state's role in transportation. The governor and the legislature determined that all transportation activities should be organized in a single department, really started talking about what really became Iowa DOT. The Highway and Aeronautics Commission, the Motor Vehicle Division of the Department of Public Safety, the Transportation Regulation Division of the Iowa Commerce Commission, and the Iowa Reciprocity Board combined to create the Iowa Department of Transportation as we know it today. This new department also included formed units for public transit, railroads, and river transportation. Some key ingredients that we talk about really today is that modal and intermodal connectivity. The DOT of today continues to have a strong focus on Iowa highways, but we play a very significant leadership role in really all of the transportation system, and that's rail, air, water, transit systems. Those are really critical really for the state, especially from an economic perspective. Our ties to Iowa State University still remain strong. We still have a very strong connection, relying on them from their engineering department, for their Institute for Transportation, which is really one of the cutting-edge technical campuses around in the United States that provide research and technologies which assist ultimately all of us in strengthening Iowa's transportation system. Finally, we're gathered here to celebrate what I just briefly talked about, but is a very rich history of the Iowa Highway Commission and ultimately the Iowa Department of Transportation's role in connecting people, really driving that connection for all of us. While we speak collectively of the department's successes, we cannot forget that none of our accomplishments would be possible without the hard work of our dedicated employees of yesterday, today, and those that will come for tomorrow. I believe our collective legacy will be another bright 100 years of transportation in Iowa. I'm very confident of that. Ultimately, that's going to be cutting edge, innovative, and on demand, just as it has been the last 100 years. A central component of that last 100 years is great leadership is every single team member who came before. Those here today and those who will come next. I just had the opportunity, I was just walking around the department's office yesterday, not that I just wander around, but I happened to be going down the hallway, and all of our new interns had started. We have hired a lot of interns from around in the universities getting started this summer, and it was just good to have a quick conversation with them about really what the department is and really what the opportunity is here, because those are the ones that will come next. The Iowa DOT will continue for another 100 years. I always say that all the time. One of the greatest things about working for the Department of Transportation is it's going to be here. It will always be part of that integral process. I can't tell people what it's going to look like, and I don't think they could 30 years or 40 years ago, but there's going to be a Department of Transportation focused on really that connectivity issue for the state of Iowa. And as each of us, this next 100 years, I think each of us pays forward really an amazing transportation system for the people of this great state of Iowa. And that's really what, for me, what transportation is all about. So, what we want to do is sort of move into the program, and we have a number of individuals that come up and talk, but most importantly, I want to start off in introducing Lieutenant Governor Kim Reynolds. And I'm very honored to obviously have Lieutenant Governor here today. As I like to say, she began her career on the transportation front line, is what I would advocate, just as I did and many of us have, serving as a motor vehicle clerk in the Clark County Treasurer's Office and eventually becoming the Clark County Treasurer. She is part of what I would call Iowa's transportation's rich history, having been integral in development of our partnership with the county treasurers to improve what I say is most important, that's customer service with driver's license issuance. And so I want to hope you join me in welcoming Lieutenant Governor Kim Reynolds today.
Well, good afternoon, and thank you, Paul, for that very nice introduction. It's just a real honor to be here today to help you celebrate DOT's 100th anniversary. Current and previous commissioners and prior directors, again, thank you for giving us the opportunity to participate today. Transportation is the backbone of our daily lives, and Iowans use transportation to get back and forth to work, to transport us to exciting locales, and as a source of entertainment. Transportation is involved in delivering the food that we put on our tables and the clothes that we place on our backs. Iowa, as Paul talked about a little bit, has come a long way from the mud roads that I grew up on that made up our transportation system at the turn of the last century. Dusty, rut-filled routes have been replaced with bustling interstates. Experimental aircraft has given way to commercial planes that carry hundreds of passengers at a time. Since 1913, the Iowa Highway Commission and the Iowa Department of Transportation have been a part of those very advances. The agency not only maintains the primary road system, but also plays a hand in rail, air, and transit travel throughout the great state of Iowa. Although our methods of travel continue to change and improve, there is no doubt the need to connect people and goods will always be a part of everything we do. Iowans can be proud of the fact that we have a strong and capable DOT filled with innovative employees eager to continue and enhance the role that transportation plays in our lives. And as Paul indicated, I have a very interesting and special perspective. I had the opportunity through the County Treasurers Association to really be a partner, and I've got all of my colleagues that I worked with so many years just front and center here to be a colleague through motor vehicle, title and registration, and driver's license issuance, and really proud to be a part of that partner in providing services to the citizens of Iowa. So during my time now as Lieutenant Governor, I've had the chance to even learn a little bit more about the DOT's plans for the future of transportation in the state. Today, I get the chance to dive just a little bit deeper. That makes you all nervous, doesn't it? Because you thought I was diving in pretty deep before. But into the agency's rich history and the accomplishments that have made the Iowa Highway Commission and the Iowa Department of Transportation not just a national, but really an international leader in transportation innovation as well as safety, which is a very important component of what you do. I'm honored to be a part of this special day and hope that you will join me in congratulating the Iowa Department of Transportation on, again, 100 years of outstanding success. Congratulations.
Thank you very much, Lieutenant Governor. So next, I get to introduce Governor Terry Branstad. And I am very honored to have the governor here today to celebrate the success of transportation in the state of Iowa. And not just because he's my boss, but most importantly because of the tremendous leadership the governor has provided the state for many, many years, and it's really had a profound impact ultimately on the transportation system. Governor Branstad understands how transportation in Iowa is a critical part of Iowa's economic engine. As I like to say, transportation powers the creation of wealth in our state and ultimately our nation, unleashing opportunity for economic activity. So please join me in welcoming Governor Terry Branstad. Thank you, Governor.
Well, thank you. Paul Tribino, thank you for that very nice introduction, and thank you for the great work you're doing as a leader of the Department of Transportation and really being a great problem solver for us in state government. I couldn't help but enjoy looking at some of the displays here. First of all, I don't know if this is by design or not, but they've got the license plates, and guess what county? 95. That's Winnebago County, my home county. Then there's a sign there that says junction of 218 and 9. Well, those of you that know my history know that when I ran for the legislature in 1972, Highway 9 was 18 foot wide, curb and gutter on the side. It was one of the absolute worst roads in the state. And I ran against the mayor of Buffalo Center, and he said, if I'm elected, I'm going to get the road fixed. And I said, no, wait a minute. It's the Highway Commission, not the legislature, makes that decision. So I spent the whole campaign trying to explain to people how it worked. Well, they didn't want to hear that. They just wanted to get the road fixed. Well, I got elected. I remember bringing a group down here to Ames. I say down here because Winnebago County is up on the Minnesota border. So I look at it like from the map perspective. We came to Ames with a big delegation to say why we should get Highway 9 fixed. We were on the bottom of the 5-year plan. Well, some of you may recall there was a court decision that ruled against the president, who had impounded a certain amount of highway money and required a lot of federal money to be released to the states. And because of that, Highway 9, and I think somewhat because of the presentation we made to the commissioners and to the thoughtful commissioners at that time, they moved Highway 9 from the bottom to the top of the 5-year plan, and we rebuilt Highway 9. So on December 1st, 1976, in Buffalo Center, Iowa, I had the honor of being there for the dedication of Highway 9. They said it'd be a cold day when this road was fixed, and it was really cold. Well, I guess I'd have to say it'll be a hot day when the DOT celebrates its 100th anniversary. And after having snow here 2 weeks ago, it is probably a record-setting high. So it's great to be here. I also couldn't help but look at that 25-year-old map. And my hair isn't as dark as it was, but my picture's still on the map, so I feel good about that. Anyway, Iowa's transportation system is like no other. We are a state bordered by 2 great rivers, the Missouri and the Mississippi. We have interstates 80 and 35 that intersect in the middle of our state. We have 8 commercial and 101 general aviation airports. We have 18 freight railroads, 2 Amtrak routes that carry people and goods through the state of Iowa and across the country. Iowa is viewed as a predominantly rural state, yet we have public transportation system that does support 26.3 million rides annually and does cover all 99 counties. Our impressive infrastructure could not be possible without Iowa DOT's century-long dedication to providing our state residents and visitors with reliable, safe, and efficient transportation system. From its roots as the Iowa Highway Commission, the DOT has a tradition of being an innovative leader for the nation's traveling public. The organization's first highway engineer, Thomas McDonald, went on to become the nation's first chief engineer of the Bureau of Public Roads and one of the most respected men in his field, both nationally and internationally. The Iowa Highway Commission employees developed the slip form paver, which greatly speeded up the process of roadway paving and revolutionized road construction across this nation and overseas as well. The no passing zone pennant, which has been a safety standard across the U.S. since the early 1960s, was first used right here in Iowa. The Iowa DOT continues to be responsible for a system of 9,000 miles of primary roads and works to support a strong, safe, and efficient transportation network in Iowa, including all modes of transportation. Today, I want to take time to thank the countless number of employees who who have served this agency for the last 100 years and played such an important role in not only providing quality, safe transportation, but helping our state in terms of economic development. The transportation that we have today is definitely an asset for economic development as we work to attract more business and jobs. So it's an exciting and a fun time to be involved with transportation, and the Lieutenant Governor and I are very honored and pleased to be able to work with the DOT as we work on the projects for the future. And I have the honor also of presenting you the official proclamation for this 100th anniversary. And I do want to thank the commissioners and former commissioners, directors and former directors that are here, and all of you, citizens and the county treasurers and others that have joined us. Believe it or not, I can read better without my glasses, so I'm going to take the glasses off. Whereas transportation is the backbone for commerce and personal mobility in the state and a lifeline for Iowa's thriving economy, and whereas the Iowa Department of Transportation and its predecessor, the Iowa State Highway Commission, have efficiently kept this state on the move since 1913, and whereas the department has led the nation with many outstanding innovations and new technologies to improve our transportation system, and whereas a quality and reliable intermodal transportation system plays a vital role in the economic health and well-being of all Iowans, and whereas the foundation of Iowa's transportation system remains firmly rooted in the strong partnership between federal, state, and local governments, public agencies, private consultants, contractors, and other businesses, and private citizens. And whereas for 100 years, transportation workers statewide have pledged their commitment to serving the citizens of Iowa, often during times of disaster and under the most challenging of weather conditions. And whereas the Iowa Department of Transportation will, for the next 100 years, continue to deliver excellent customer service to the people who live or travel in Iowa, and ensure that every dollar is spent supporting a transportation system that works best for its citizens, the economy, and the communities in which we reside. Now, therefore, I, Terry E. Branstad, Governor of the State of Iowa, do hereby proclaim April 9, 2013 as the 100th anniversary of the Iowa Department of Transportation, and urge the citizens of this great state to join in saluting the men and women who have made Iowa's transportation system one of the most respected in America.
Thank you very much, Governor. Again, one of the things to note I just wanted to say was that the Governor said April 9th. April 9th really was our 100 years. We actually did have commission meeting that day. The reason we didn't do it here is we were on the road. We were in Coralville and Iowa City, and so that was one of our road meetings, so that's why we rescheduled to make sure that we were here really to celebrate that 100 years on the campus, really where it started. So let's move a little bit further into our program. I next would like to introduce really a longtime DOT employee, Ian McGilvery. Many of the folks here know Ian, and Ian and I just joked a little bit before we got started. He was actually one of the first people that came to see me, not within days, I would say. They wanted to come in and meet me. He worked from 1977 to 2002, serving as the Director of Planning, Research, Engineering, and Research Management Divisions. Ian's passion for transportation is evident to anyone who has had a chance to speak with him. Even in retirement, he continues to be actively involved in the preservation of transportation history through contributions to the Spalding Transportation Museum in Grinnell. Ian has agreed to share a few stories of projects, and we always say just a few stories, Ian, he was involved in that were instrumental in creating Iowa's transportation system as we know it today. So please welcome Ian McGilvery.
Thank you. As the director said, I'm Ian McGilvery. I'm a transplant from Alberta, Canada, by way of Purdue and Michigan and Kentucky departments. So I've seen a little of the countryside. I couldn't hold a job, really. I was recruited in the 1970s by a gentleman by the name of Raymond Castle, who promised an awful lot of things, and I want to say he delivered, and thank you, Raymond. I had a grand time. Moving to Iowa, I learned a lot about Iowa and Iowans. It's a rewarding experience in itself. You heard mention of a couple of names, and they're ones that we should pay attention to and honor in the past. Anston Marston, the Director of Engineering, who was tapped by the legislature and the governor to help solve problems with the transportation business over 100 years ago. Thomas McDonald, an interesting name, former chief engineer of the highway department back when. Something that's not known about Mr. McDonald, we call the interstate system the Eisenhower Interstate System, and it's named for the president for a good reason. But the creator, designer, and planner of the interstate system was Thomas H. McDonald, the former head of this department. He was planning that in the 1930s. He introduced it to Congress as a proposed system with a map and routes, etc., all designated before World War II, and led it through the Congress up into the early 1950s. It should be called the McDonald system. Fred White, another interesting former Anston Marston student and head of this department, who in the 1920s and 30s identified the need and the role and the benefit of what we think of today as modern highways, 4-lane access controlled, etc. He was that far ahead of the times. It took us a long time to catch up with him. And one that I never had a chance to meet but wished I would have, an Iowa State professor whose name I've forgotten, who wrote the textbook that I studied up in Alberta. Amazing. It's amazing how things go around and come around. And last but not least, one person that I think deserves an awful lot of credit, his name is Robert Rigler, Bob Rigler, the former long-serving chairman of the Transportation Commission, recently deceased, who was one of the greatest leaders of transportation and spokespersons, former senator and leader of the Iowa Senate for many years as well. I was introduced to one other thing that was absolutely amazing when I came to Iowa that has a major influence, and that's the topic of public participation and the idea that an agency like the department consults with the public, consults with local officials and the public in the execution of its business. And this predated federal law requiring it by an awful long time. We had advisory councils and partnerships, and it's really something to be proud of. It's also been a very formative thing for us, from delegations, as the governor mentioned, all the way through to ongoing regional planning. Surprising experiences that I had a chance to participate in. I can't really reflect on the first 50 years. I'm not that old, but I am older than you think. When I came here, there was a pavement management system underway. They began collecting data in the late 1950s and early 1960s on pavement performance, and it was used to help with design. We took that and developed it into a pavement management system that helped guide investment and help make decisions about when to extend the life of pavements and when to replace pavements. The interesting thing about that is it went on to become a key element and perhaps the instigator or predecessor of something known today as asset management, a program introduced by our former director, Darrell Rensick, to the nation through AASHTO, and today it's seen as the asset management program led by the Federal Highway Administration. An awful lot of that had its birth and start here in Iowa, to the credit of many, many people who worked on it. Another beneficial, and I say quotes around beneficial experience, was learning about the benefits of deferred maintenance. That sounds silly, doesn't it? But that was deferred maintenance for railroads. Remember, we were a Department of Transportation. And we learned about the benefit of deferred maintenance, standing derailments, and a few other things. One of the interesting experiences that I had a chance to participate in was the bankruptcies of railroads, a decision made in a court that our department took a lead step in, which was to terminate the existence of the Rock Island Railroad as a method of moving ahead in the railroad business and service. And as a result of support from our governor in his first term and the legislature, we actually participated in the investment that today has given us the Iowa Northern Railroad and the Iowa Interstate Railroad, who continue to do a good job at supporting rail service in this state. One of my most unusual experiences was getting rid of a piece of interstate highway. Can you imagine that? a state that would turn back or get rid of a piece of interstate highway. What do I mean? We turned back to the federal government Interstate 380 in downtown Waterloo. We did get a little bit of financial inducement for it, but that led to significant investment in Waterloo, which benefits it today. And they are served by a very good highway running through the community. But that was a forerunner to a number of other steps that came together and gave us another very interesting experience, which today shows up as something called the Avenue of the Saints. And that was an effort, a 5-state effort that identified the missing element from the interstate system, a connection from St. Louis, Missouri to St. Paul, Minnesota, thus the Avenue of the Saints. And a very interesting multi-state study that determined it should go through Iowa, not Illinois. I have a few friends in Illinois that are still angry about that. But that was one of the most interesting and beneficial long-term experiences here was in building partnerships. Building partnerships in planning and programming and in research and education. When the federal law was passed requiring the states to consult with local government in the planning process, Iowa was out in front and fully complying with the requirement well before it was adopted, as we partnered in and financially supported regional planning across the state at that time. There were a few other rewarding experiences while working with the department. One of them was unexpected visitors. We had visits from a number of very amazing people who came looking to learn from us. One of them was a fellow named Tom Larson. He came here after he was appointed to head the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation when it was in a very troubled time. It was a long time ago. How they're doing today, I don't know. But after he was appointed, he came and spent a week here learning on the job before he took over the Pennsylvania DOT. That's a tremendous reflection on this department and what it had to contribute. He was followed up by a fellow who took over the Florida Department of Transportation after he came for his orientation. We had a couple others that didn't know enough to come before they were appointed. They came shortly after they were appointed, including the director of the Missouri Department and the Nebraska Department of Roads. So we got to see a little of management. We were also visited by management teams from a number of departments over the years. Very interesting experiences. But the one that was the most interesting, we were visited by a group from another country, from the prefect and city of Shanghai, China. And we were visited by a management group for the Department of Public Works and Transportation who came here for a workshop with the Iowa Department of Transportation. We were aided by Iowa State University, which just happened to have a couple of professors who spoke the native language, although all of our visitors were quite fluent in Chinese. Very, very interesting. And one of the biggest lessons out of it from our side was to learn they're no different than us. They were no different in the problems that we both have, the management approaches that we took, and the challenge that faced us into the future. Quite an educational experience. All this led to some interesting invitations, a few of which were to spread the word around the country, including to serve as an advisor with both the Kentucky and Oregon legislatures when they were developing future directions for their program. So anyway, a couple of favorites that paid off. The extra inch, as we called it, our pavement management system led us to some better understanding of pavement performance and allowed us to be prepared for increases in truck weight limits and a variety of other things. A very interesting growth opportunity. Perhaps the most interesting one to me was in 1989 when the legislature raised the gas tax. We advised and they agreed that we set some money aside for a traffic safety improvement program. And it's been around since 1989. It's been the core for a complementary or a partner program with local government and has led to many, many improvements. I saw the benefit of one of those on the noon news today, cable guardrails on Interstate 35 that saved a vehicle from crossing the highway into a head-on collision that probably would have done some serious damage or deaths, and the fellow who was driving the vehicle walked away from it. He left his vehicle in the middle of the road. But anyway, looking back, preserving history, which thank you to my former director, Mark Wandrow, is something that I really had a chance to participate in and learn a lot about. as he asked me to work with the Transportation Museum even before I retired, and he gave me some continuing unpaid employment for a few years, about 10 years. It's been a lot of fun, Mark. Thank you for getting me started. Preserving Iowa history is important. The lesson learned, as the governor said, is Iowa relies on transportation and the DOT is getting the job done. Iowa was created in part as a state to improve and provide the public with transportation. Education was the other thing. I think the job is getting done and we're delivering. That, to me, is the big thing. The other thing I want to say to a lot of folks here is thank you to the DOT family for everything you've done. I've enjoyed working with you and knowing you. It's been a great time. Director Trombino, thank you very much for the invitation.
Thank you, Ian, very much. I think really shows sort of the rich history and the kind of the interconnected web. A lot of things that I heard Ian say, I'm going to talk a little bit towards the end of things that we're really moving forward on within the department. What I'd like to do next is introduce former DOT Director Darrell Rensick. I just had a chance to meet Darrell. Darrell became involved with the department as a commissioner in 1981 when he was city manager of Sioux Center. One of the things that was interesting when I was talking to Darrell, he asked me about the project in Sioux Center 75 that we just had some controversy about. But in 1987, he became part of the DOT staff, serving as deputy director until May of 1988, when then Governor Branstad appointed him to be director. Darrell left the department in September of 1999, making him the longest-serving director of the modern DOT. Yes, I'm pretty jealous of that. Darrell came aboard just as the department was celebrating their 75th anniversary, and a lot of those displays are actually right behind here, so after we get done, hopefully get a chance to go over there. And he is here today to talk about some of those items that were buried in the 75th anniversary time capsule and how the department differs from the one we know today. So please welcome Darrell up to the stage.
Well, Paul, thank you very much. I truly am honored and pleased to be here today, and much appreciation for the invitation to join you in this 100th anniversary of the Iowa DOT and the Iowa Highway Commission. Events like this are always really quite fun because you come not only to celebrate those years that this organization's been in operation, but you also get a chance to meet a lot of old friends and those that you worked with and people that made this department what it is. And so coming here today was really special for me just to do that. And obviously when you have a celebration of any type, particularly when it refers to some milestone, you always want to look back and you think about the good things that happened, and sometimes you also reflect on some of maybe the things that weren't quite so good. But nonetheless, it's a time to reflect and look back. And so it's really fun, and I really appreciate the opportunity to be here today. I'm also going to, I don't want to apologize for it, but when you get older, you have problems, and I do have some macular degeneration problems in my eyes, and so being able to read smaller print right in front of me is getting to be very difficult. So if I hold up my notes here, then you have to apologize, that's the way it is. But anyway, I was asked to reflect a bit on the 1988 75th anniversary celebration and some of the things that we did and so forth, and so I'll do just that. It was a week in mid-May in 1988 that the Iowa DOT held a celebration to mark the department's 75th anniversary. Much like this year, this celebration was held to coincide with the National Transportation Week. The theme for the 75th anniversary was 75 years on the move. And I think that's pretty significant because, as you know, we live in a very dynamic situation in society today, and things, if there's a constant out there, that constant is change. And so a lot of things change, and so I thought that was a really important theme at that 75 years on the move, and that brought together all the various departments within the state and to celebrate then what was the 75th anniversary of the DOT. And so it was a good event, and it was something that, as I said, lasted the whole week. And so I'm going to run through some of the things that we did just for purposes of a little history and just to check back and that we all remember what we did. So back in 1988, we kicked off our festivities at the beginning of the week in May with a commissioner's serving of ice cream. It was most commonly called the ice cream scoop, I think. And I'm not even so sure, I don't remember if that was the first time that we did it, but we, as commissioners, then flexed our muscles and we scooped ice cream for all the employees, and it got to be a pretty popular event. And so that was one of the things that we kicked off then, that week of celebration in 1988 with the ice cream scoop. Then later, I think it was on Wednesday of that week, because I was just relatively new to the director, or new to the department as a director, as Paul stated, I had had 4 years of commissioner from 81, 84, and then deputy director from June 1 of 87 to February of 88. And so it was just short after that we were celebrating our anniversary, and so they felt that it was important that I get to meet more people and they get to meet me. And so there was a special reception that was held in the middle of that week. Then on Friday of that week, the commissioners hosted a reception for DOTers, both the former DOT employees as well as those that were currently working. It was designed as a chance to reflect on the department's accomplishments, but more importantly, to give us a chance to connect with each other as co-worker and as friends. And so that was on Friday of that week. And then on Saturday, the doors of the department were open, of headquarters were open, and we had open house. And during that time, there were many displays that were set up by various departments to let the people know just what the Department of Transportation was all about and what we were doing as far as a state agency to improve the transportation in the state and to serve the citizens that we serve as a department. And so that was on Saturday. In addition, there was a softball tournament that was held then, and I believe, if I recall correctly, that the finals in that softball tournament was the information services, and I believe they played transportation inventory. And if I remember correctly, also I think transportation or information services won that game, so they were declared the softball champions in 1988. Then we also had Vince and Larry. Remember, they are the seatbelt convincer folks that came in, and whoever they could talk into taking that ride on that seatbelt convincer, that's what they did. And what it did, however, was make firm believers out of a lot of people that wearing seatbelts was the proper thing to do, as it is and still is today and always should be. But the highlight of that event was the time capsule that was then buried in the northeast corner of the complex here in Ames. I think it was in a big barrel. You know, I was thinking as I was checking through some of this, if we could do that today with all the documents that were put into that time capsule, we could probably do it with these computer chips and bury a matchbox or something, and be able to get all the information there that we had to put in this 55-gallon drum. But anyway, there was a time capsule that was buried, and which now has been uncovered, and is now, many items are on display here for you to take a look at. There's a table right behind the podium here that certainly you're welcome to take a look at. Those items were all in this time capsule and are now on display. Included, I just have a few items here. This is show and tell. And so here's a document. I guess they say, I think it's all the payroll of all the employees at the DOT. But nonetheless, this is just an example of one of the documents that we had at that time and used at that time. Another item that I want to show you is this was the telephone book. I don't know if that's a lot different today than what it was then, except, however, that the telephone now is on the internet, and you just call it up and go to the website, and you can get your telephone numbers that way. The third thing that we had was, well, this was in the telephone book, as a matter of fact. This is 2 brochures. It's called Need Answers. You know, all the inquiries that we receive from various people about various things. One of the things to do is to condense as much as you can information on these Need Answers type of brochure to let people know who you are and who's in charge of what. And these things have been very valuable. And the fact that it's almost still the same with the question mark is evidence of that. I also had a chance to check back as to what the salaries were in 1988. There always seems to be an interest in that, and so we'll talk about it. In 1988, a secretary began a career at the DOT making $568 every 2 weeks. Today, they earn $1,108, almost double, or just near double. All engineers made $768 each pay period, and in 2013, they start out at $1,521. Again, it's just about double. It's rather interesting that it's all about the same. An equipment operator made $638. Today, they make $1,265. So those are just some of the comparative salaries from 1988 to 2013. The salaries, as I said, were all in this book, and I can hold it again. That thing's getting heavy. But that was the book with all the salaries in, and something that nowadays they do a little different. One last, and these are just some of the copies of, this was the Iowa Rail Plan, and every department had their own plan and transportation initiative and this was a planning, programming, project development document, but everything was in a document form, and became very, very important, obviously, because that's what our job was, to make those things work and to make our transportation system work. But also, this was a little calculator that I'm not even sure the brand name. I probably got it written down here, but nonetheless, this was a Texas Instrument. That's what it was. This was a calculator that people had then became their, if you will, their math that they had to go by. And so it was very, very important, and everybody came around with one of these, had one of these calculators. And so, but today, and I took it along just because I got it in my pocket, and I did shut it off, this is what you call a Galaxy S3. And in that, I can get emails and I can do everything. So I can do math, it makes no difference. So just from 1988 to 2013, that's the difference. So we've had a lot of changes, and one of the things I've really appreciated was the fact that I've had a lot of interaction with the employees through all the years, and to see them not only grow in the jobs that they had, but to appreciate the services that they provided. And I wasn't going to do this, but I'm going to tell you the story that I always thought was probably about the ultimate in service from the DOT. As Paul indicated, prior to my time coming with the DOT, I was a city manager in Sioux Center for several years, and it gave me my first opportunity to interact with the Department of Transportation because there were projects that we would discuss and so forth. And so I worked for Maury Topaski. He was the mayor, and I think Governor probably remembers Maury Topaski well. Maury was the mayor of Sioux Center for 34 years, and no one ever ran against him. And but he was really, really good. But what Maury would do is he would schedule council meetings at 6 o'clock in the morning. Now, can you imagine having 6 o'clock in the morning council meeting, and he was an attorney, and then we'd meet at his office, and then he would fry pancakes and fry eggs and so forth and make breakfast. But when it came time to have a discussion with the DOT, and Walt Morris was the district engineer in Sioux City at that time. I don't know if Walt got a lot of instructions from his mother because she lived, I think, to be 114 years old, and here's a couple years ago, slightly before her passing, she was the oldest citizen, I think, in the world. And so, but Walt was a district engineer in Sioux City for many, many years. And he would then get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and get dressed and get ready to come up to Sioux Center so that he could drive that 45 minutes or an hour and be in Sioux Center in time for a council meeting that the mayor wanted at 6 o'clock. And I never could figure out if the mayor did that because he didn't want the media there or what. But in any event, it worked. And to me, that told me something, that it's that kind of dedication and it's that kind of spirit that you have as far as the organization for was representing, that he would get up and come to Sioux Center at that time in the morning. And so it's a tremendous organization, and I was just proud to be a part of it, and I thank the governor for choosing me and allowing me to be the director for the years I was. And, you know, we got a milestone of 100 years today, and the 125 will be coming up. If I'm still here, I'll be a centenarian on that year, incidentally. And so if I'm around, I'll be glad to be invited and come back and talk to you again. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Daryl. That was a very great presentation to talk about. I still love, I love this. This is the holes, you know, with the paper. That's what I liked. And by the way, our payroll, if we print it off, is much smaller today. I just want to point that out. There's a lot less of us. Hey, one of the things I wanted to mention was, one, I want to thank the 100th Anniversary Committee. They've done so much work. I can't say, I just wanted to start and say that I really appreciate their time. And that kind of goes to, I'm going to take this with me, so I'm going to wander this way. I was told that I have to do this, so if I fall. And they also decided to do a capsule, which is right here. And a lot of the things in there, which is very interesting based on what Daryl talked about. We're actually putting an iPhone, which, by the way, is very shortly is going to have our payroll on it, so I'll be able to look at that too. Of course, I want to point out what's most important is, and Daryl brought this up because of, it's a question actually I have to ask Mark, is he was asking about his license plate in tea time, is what I think it is, right? And if he can transfer that to another person. And I think the answer is no. But we'll see. One of my favorite things was when, most folks don't know, we have a lot of employees that some like Hawkeyes, some like Cyclones, and some like you and I. I always feel that I'm neutral because I graduated from University of Wisconsin. But as soon as an individual employee saw this, it was actually listed this way in there. Somebody came up and switched it. He sits over there, by the way. Just in case anybody wanted to know who that was. So we do have some wonderful things in here. You know, one of the things that I think a lot of my folks know, I actually aspire to this more than anything else. From a law enforcement perspective, it is my passion. I've always wanted to wear one. Maybe someday. So what we're going to do is just sort of shut this up and really sort of kick off that next phase for 25 years from now. And hopefully, not only Daryl, but I have the opportunity to come back also. So. Okay, to wrap things up, just a few words. I want to talk a little bit about the department today, kind of where it's going, and I think it's so reflective on all the things you've heard today. The department really has set out on a new vision: smarter, simpler, customer-driven, improved processes, efficiency, really focusing on how we're delivering, taking service directly to the customer, not only through mobile applications but other ways, and providing them the choice that they expect. Using technologies for transparency, communicating with the public. This winter, we moved forward with winter operations and towards our last couple storms, and we're communicating directly with those folks through Twitter and responding to issues on the system. That's a wonderful thing. It just shows you how things have changed so much. But ultimately what that does is puts the power in the customer's hands. With better information about the transportation system and an emphasis on safety. I think we heard that today, not only from Ian, but safety centered around what I like to say is choice and prevention. Implementation, we talked about it, we had a lot of conversations with the Commission about it today, a statewide asset management plan. Really, the foundation started by Daryl, focused on the right investments at the right time, being better stewards with the dollars, making sure that we are ultimately delivering the performance that everyone expects, but actually showing performance outcomes of reliability, resiliency, predictability, and the key thing is safety. Iowa DOT has implemented a freight advisory, business-focused freight advisory council. The purpose of and the mission provide a forum of exchange of ideas to help the Iowa DOT better understand the complexities associated with freight movement to more effectively guide public investments in transportation infrastructure. As we move forward in the next 100 years of transportation in Iowa, our emphases will be on management and operations of the transportation system. It's essentially built, and we have to make sure that system performs. Advancing what I like to say is a 21st century farm-to-market system that moves products seamlessly across road, rail, and water to global marketplaces. That's been the big change, and we need to make sure that those interconnectivity issues really function. Enhancement of intermodal connections for people and products. In addition, my belief is that there's going to be a new role, and it's already developing at Iowa DOT, as the fusion of information around the transportation system will move the DOT to become a source and facilitator of information that transforms the movement of people and products through what I like to say is a digitally connected Iowa and digitally connected world. Faster, cheaper, and better, just as what they started to say 100 years ago. And that fits exactly into what I like to say is, and what we've moved into is our new Iowa DOT vision, smarter, simpler, and customer-driven. I really want to thank everybody for attending today. Most importantly, I want to thank the Governor and Lieutenant Governor for taking part in celebrating this important milestone. I can't say enough for the commissioners taking out a time of their day. I want to recognize my former predecessor, Nancy Richardson, Mark Rondrell, two of the other directors besides Gerald that are here. The stewardship of this agency. I'm sorry? Oh, Warren's here too. Okay. Appreciate that. Yeah. Appreciate them. You know, one of the things that I've always said is the stewards that have come before in the leadership of this agency has been really, truly beneficial, and really, I've really tried to embrace that and try to move the agency with the same spirit that all of those folks have come before me. And I really appreciate them attending today. So again, thank you all today for attending the event. I hope you enjoy. We're going to have refreshments. They're actually out, so take some time. We have cookies with the stamp of the 100th year on there, and enjoy some of the displays. It's still cooler in here than it is out there. But have a wonderful day. Again, thank you very much for attending.